Hi, I'm Karen, and this is my Week 11 NFL picks. Now, there were a lot of upsets last week. It was just a crazy week of football, and that's all we kept hearing. I kept hearing all week on how there was just a bunch of upsets and teams that should have won lost. You know, I did pretty okay, but let's see how we can do this week. So the first game that we have actually tonight, which we're going to talk about, is the New York Jets and the Denver Broncos. And they are playing in Denver. Let's talk about the Jets. Now, the New York Jets lost 16-37 to the New England Patriots, which we kind of had a feeling the Patriots weren't going to lose three in a row. But now the New York Jets, Mark Sanchez had only 306 passing yards. They had 5 penalties for 56 yards. Mark Sanchez threw 2 interceptions. They had 1 fumble. He was sacked 5 times for 38 yards loss. Now, they were kind of, gave up on that game, I thought. They weren't the Jets that they were getting to here. I just was very disappointed in their play. And I did hear that LaDainian Tomlinson is out tonight, and I did hear that Darrelle Revis is probably not going to play. Now, the Denver Broncos, they won 17-10 over the Chiefs. Now, Tim Tebow only had 69 passing yards. They only had 2 completed passes, and he threw 1 interception. They made they had 1 touchdown pass. Sorry, no interceptions. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong notes. No interceptions. They made 1 touchdown pass, and Tebow had 1 touchdown run and a field goal. They had 8 penalties for 65 yards and no sacks. And as I said, there was only 2 completed passes. Now, they kind of had more college-style play. They had 55 runs, though. And if you watched, they would go to pass to one guy and then kind of fake to one guy and then pass it to another guy. And it was kind of, I think they caught the Chiefs' defense by surprise. So, the element of surprise is gone. And they're playing in Denver, and I know, all the experts on Inside the NFL picked the Jets, and I know the little computer on ESPN says the Jets by 6. And originally I said the Jets, but, my head is saying the Jets. My gut is saying the Broncos. I just think the way that if the Jets play like they did on Sunday night, the Broncos have a very good chance of taking it. And I just think the way things have been going for Tim Tebow and the Broncos, I think this might be a major upset. So, it's going to be a tough game, and this is a long shot. The Jets have the ability to win and the probability to win. I just think there might be a surprise. So, I'm just taking the shot in the dark, and I'm going with the Broncos on that one because there is a very big possibility, and there are some experts that agree with me. So, and plus the Jets are only 5-4 and the Broncos are 4-5, so they're not that far apart on their wins. Now, the Tennessee Titans and the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Tennessee Titans, they won 30-3 over the Panthers. Hasselbeck had 219 passing yards. He threw the 1 interception, and they had 9 penalties for 92 yards, no fumbles. He was sacked 1 time for 8 yards lost, but they made 5 sacks. But now the Atlanta Falcons, they lost 23-26 to the Saints in overtime. Ryan had 351 passing yards. They had 10 penalties for 85 yards, no fumbles. That was said in overtime. It was a really close game. They went for it on 4th down and inches, didn't get it through, didn't make it, turned it over on downs. The Saints kicked a field goal and won that game. And I know a lot. Chris Collinsworth and Warren Sapp is going with the Tennessee Titans, but I'm picking with Phil Simms, and I think the Falcons are going to win that game. Next game up is the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they won 17-3 over the Colts. Gabbert had 118 passing yards. They had 5 penalties for 55 yards, made 2 interceptions, no fumbles. You know, they have a 3-6 record this year. Not doing anything too great. Now, the Cleveland Browns, they also have a 3-6 record. They lost 12-13 to the Rams. Very close game. McCoy had 218 passing yards, 6 penalties for 60 yards, sacked 2 times for 9 yards lost. They fumbled 2 times, lost 1 of them, made 1 interception. They did get very close. Phil Dawson missed a field goal at the end of the game, which would have had them win that game. So it was a very, very close game. They were right there, had that game in their hands, and then they lost it. But I think this time around, I think the Browns are going to take this one. I think they're going to win that one. Now, the Carolina Panthers and the Detroit Lions. Now, the Carolina Panthers, I think the hype with Cam Newton is slowing down there. The Carolina Panthers are only 2-7. They lost 3-30 to the Titans. Cam Newton had 212 passing yards. He threw 1 interception. They had 12 penalties for 99 yards. A lot of penalties. Fumbled 2 times, lost 1 of them. 5 sacks for 46 yards lost. Now, the Detroit Lions, very disappointing. They lost 13-37 to the Bears. Stafford had 329 passing yards, threw 4 interceptions, and had a little scuffle there. They had 4 penalties for 53 yards, 2 sacks for 16 yards lost, fumbled 3 times, lost 2 of them. But I think, against the Carolina Panthers, I think the Lions are going to redeem themselves and they're going to get another win. Now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the undefeated Green Bay Packers. You don't need to even go into this one. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they lost 9-37 to the Texans. Freeman had 170 passing yards, threw 3 interceptions. I think Freeman kind of was losing it at the end of the season here, middle of the season towards the end here. 6 penalties for 49 yards, fumbled 2 times, lost 1 of them, sacked 4 times for 29 yards lost. Undefeated Green Bay Packers, 45-7 over the Vikings. Let's see, Rodgers had 250 passing yards, and Flynn had 38 passing yards because they took Rodgers out, so why not? They knew they won it. Cobb had their first touchdown on a punt return. They had 1 penalty for 5 yards. That's it. 1 penalty. Very clean game on their side. They had fumbles. They had 3, but they only lost 1 of them. He was sacked 3 times for 22 yards lost, and they made 1 interception. So we all know who's going to win this one. Packers, hand down. No problem there. Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. Now, the Buffalo Bills, they lost 7-44 to the Cowboys. Do we really think in the beginning of the year how the Bills were off and running that we would be seeing them lose 7-44 to the Cowboys? Now, Fitzpatrick, he had 146 passing yards, threw 3 interceptions. They had 3 penalties for 12 yards, 1 fumble, sacked 1 time for 10 yards lost. I think they kind of lost it now. Now, the Miami Dolphins, they won 20-9 over the Redskins, which we kind of figured that. Moore had 209 passing yards, threw 1 interception. They had 6 penalties for 55 yards, 2 sacks for 9 yards lost. Reggie Bush, he scored 2 touchdowns and made 2 receptions, and made 2 interceptions, So Reggie Bush was hot. And they had 3 fumbles where they only lost 1 of them. So with them coming off that hot streak, that hot game, Reggie Bush is doing, great. They're on fire there. They're getting their games going. I think Miami Dolphins are going to be able to beat the downsliding Bills there. Now the Oakland Raiders and the Minnesota Vikings. Now the Oakland Raiders, they won 24-17 over the Chargers. Palmer had 299 passing yards. They had 7 penalties for 45 yards and 1 fumble. Very big surprise. People weren't thinking them beating the Chargers there. Now the Minnesota Vikings lost 7-45 to the Packers. Christian Ponder had 190 passing yards. They had 10 penalties for 80 yards, sacked 3 times for 28 yards lost, and they only had 1 touchdown in the third quarter. Pretty much they didn't score anything else for the rest of the game. So that was a pretty tough game for the Vikings. So I think the Raiders are going to be able to take this game. And also Chris Collinsworth agrees with me there on that one. Now the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Redskins. I think that's kind of an easy one here. Now the Dallas Cowboys won 44-7 over the Bills. Tony Romo had 270 passing yards. They had 8 penalties for 74 yards. They made 3 interceptions. And Tony Romo completed 88.5% of his passes, which is meant he completed 23 of 26 passes, which was a very good passer rating for Tony Romo. Now the Redskins, they lost 9-20 to the Dolphins. Grossman had 215 passing yards, threw 2 interceptions, sacked 3 times for 30 yards lost. They had 6 penalties for 51 yards. So the Redskins, they're having a very difficult time. So I think the Cowboys are going to be able to take the Redskins with no problems there. Now, this is my difficult game here, and I think this is going to be my upset special. Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. We're going to try this again this week. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals, they almost beat the Steelers. They lost 17-24 to the Steelers. Dalton had 170 passing yards. They had 4 penalties for 35 yards. Threw 2 interceptions, no fumbles, no sacks. And Dalton had 14 overall touchdown passes in the first 9 games, which is the most by a rookie since the merger in 1970. So Andy Dalton is rocking his rookie season. So I think he's doing awesome this rookie season. And now the Baltimore Ravens lost 17-22 to the Seahawks. Flacco had 255 passing yards through 1 interception, 4 penalties for 35 yards, sacked 1 time for 8 yards lost, fumbled 2 times, and lost both of them. Now the Ravens have not been doing as good as they have been doing. They have been making a lot of mistakes, a lot of problems, and you know what? I think these Bengals are going to come right in there and upset the Ravens, just as the Seahawks did. And I think the Bengals will be able to do it. And I'm going to stick with them. Arizona Cardinals and the San Francisco 49ers. Now the Arizona Cardinals won 21-17 over the Eagles. Now who really thought that was going to happen? Now they Skelton had 315 passing yards, 7 penalties for 66 yards. Skelton also had 3 touchdowns, and they had 2 interceptions. So the Cardinals were hot. Now, but they're playing the San Francisco 49ers, who won 27-20 over the Giants. Smith had 242 passing yards, threw 1 interception. They had 5 penalties for 35 yards, no fumbles. 7th straight win, which is the best start since 1997 for the 49ers. And they were sacked 2 times for 14 yards lost. There's no stopping the 49ers. The 49ers are they are on fire. They're going to beat the Arizona Cardinals. Now the Seattle Seahawks and the St. Louis Rams. Now, the Seattle Seahawks, they won 22-17 over the Ravens, which we just said. Jackson had 217 passing yards. And 13 penalties for 100 yards. A lot of penalties. Sacked one time for 9 yards lost. Stephen Hauschka matched a franchise record with 5 field goals. So, they had a really good game. Now, the St. Louis Rams won 13-12 over the Browns. Bradford had 155 passing yards, threw 1 interception, 7 penalties for 55 yards lost, 1 sack for 7 yards lost, and 1 fumble. They've been doing good, but I think Seattle is coming off a really great game. I think Seattle's going to take it. Now, the San Diego Chargers and the Chicago Bears. Now, the San Diego Chargers, they lost 17-24 to the Raiders. Rivers had 274 passing yards, 6 penalties for 31 yards, 1 fumble. The Chargers, they're having some difficulties, but they're playing the Chicago Bears, who are on fire. They won 37-13 over the Lions. Cutler had 123 passing yards, 4 penalties for 37 yards, 2 sacks. 2 sacks for 16 yards lost. They made 4 interceptions, fumbled 3 times, but they only lost 1 of them. Charles Tillman and Major Wright each had touchdowns off of interceptions. So the Bears were hot, they're on fire, and they're going to be able to beat the Chargers. And 2 more games to talk about. The Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles lost 17-21 to the Cardinals. Michael Vick had 128 passing yards, and he does have broken ribs now. They had 11 penalties for 97 yards, 2 interceptions. Now, the New York Giants, Eli Manning had 311 passing yards through 2 interceptions. Had 6 penalties for 45 yards, sacked 1 time for 9 yards lost. They made 1 interception. He had 2 fourth down conversions at the ending of the game. And they could have had that 3rd one, and it was batted away at the end to tie that game. It was very, very close game, a great game. The Giants are playing awesome. They're going to take down those Eagles with no problem at all. So, the Giants are going to have their win. They're playing at MetLife Stadium, so it's going to be good. And last but not least, the Kansas City Chiefs and the New England Patriots. And the Kansas City Chiefs lost 10-17 to the Broncos. Matt Castle had 93 passing yards. Palco had 47 passing yards. They had 4 sacks for 16 yards lost, 4 penalties for 40 yards. And the New England Patriots, they won 37-16 over the Jets. Brady had 329 passing yards, 9 penalties for 80 yards, made 2 interceptions, 1 for a touchdown. New England Patriots, they were great. They were on fire. They were just playing like we expect the Patriots to play. And of course, I think the Patriots are going to win. So, as a little wrap up for what I think this week 11 is going to bring us, the Broncos over the Jets. I feel an upset coming. Falcons over the Titans, Browns over the Jaguars, Lions over the Panthers, Packers over the Buccaneers, Dolphins over the Bills, Raiders over the Vikings, Cowboys over the Redskins, Bengals over the Ravens, another upset, 49ers over the Cardinals, Seahawks over the Rams, Bears over the Chargers, Giants over the Eagles, and Patriots over the Chiefs. And bye week this week is the Colts, Saints, Steelers, and Texans. It's the last bye week of the season. So enjoy your football and see you next week.